The first man who laughed at me had one elbow hanging out of a feed store truck. I was standing in rubber boots, knee-deep in May water, unlatching a wooden crate that hissed like it had a secret inside. 18 gray geese stepped out into 17 acres of drowned bottom ground. And the man in the truck said, "Harold, are you raising birds now, or admitting that field beat you?" I told him the truth. I said, "Neither. I'm planting." He laughed hard enough to lean back against the seat. Not cruelly. Not exactly. It was the kind of laugh a practical man gives when he sees another practical man doing something that looks past saving. And to be fair, it did look past saving. The field behind my south fence had been under water since the last week of March. Not flooded clean like a pond. Flooded ugly, brown water. Reed canary grass. Mosquito clouds. A slick skin of green starting at the edges where the sun hit shallow water. That piece of ground sat along the Wabash River flats, 6 miles west of Clinton, Indiana, on the side of a county road that carried more tractors than cars. My grandfather called it the soft bottom. My father called it the mistake. By the time it came to me, most people just called it Harold's Swamp. And on the morning of May 12, 1994, I backed an old green stock trailer to the gate and unloaded 18 pilgrim geese into it. Each bird weighed somewhere between 11 and 14 pounds. They were not pretty in the way farm calendars make animals pretty. They were heavy in the chest, blunt in the head, muddy at the feet, and offended by everything. They did not look like salvation. They looked like 18 bad decisions with wings. By noon, the men at the grain elevator had improved the story. By 3 o'clock, I had apparently bought 40 geese. By supper, according to my sister, I had gone into the goose business because I could not grow beans anymore. That was the part that stung. Not because it was true, because it was close enough to what I feared. That bottom field had beaten better men than me. There were old clay streaks under it, tight as fired brick in places, and when spring rain sat on that clay, it did not leave politely. It stayed. It drowned seedlings. It rotted roots. It took whatever money you had spent on seed and fertilizer and turned it into cattails. I tiled it in 1979. I tiled it again in 1988. Both times the water found a way to make the work look foolish. The county map called it poorly drained silty clay loam. My father had a shorter name for it. He called it stubborn. And he knew stubborn ground better than anyone I ever met. He had a habit of writing down things other men only remembered until the next rain. Seed dates. Broken bearings. Which calf came from which cow? Which field looked green and still yielded light? How deep a spade went before it hit resistance? After he died, I found one of his record books in the back of the tool cabinet, wrapped in seed sacks and mouse-chewed baling twine. It was not sentimental looking. It was a blue farm ledger from 1956, with the corners rubbed white and oil thumbprints on the first 20 pages. Most of it was ordinary: diesel bought in February, oats drilled on the North Ridge. A note about replacing the belt on the hammer mill, but near the back, after a page where he had written the words, South Bottom, no improvement, there were 4 pages that did not read like accounts. They read like a man trying not to forget something strange. He had copied a conversation with an old Soil Conservation Service man named Mr. Blevins. Blevins had walked the bottom with my father after a wet April and told him something my father underlined twice. Some wet ground does not need more iron first, it needs feet. Under that, my father wrote the explanation: heavy birds on shallow water, not chickens. Not cattle, waterfowl. Geese for the grass, ducks for the mud. Move them in before planting, move them out before they sour the stand. Keep the water shallow enough for work, not deep enough for idleness. Then the sentence that would not leave me alone: let the birds need what the plow only smears. I read that line in the tool room in the winter of 1992, standing beside a cracked seed cleaner and the coffee can full of bolts. And I closed the book. Because it sounded ridiculous. My father had written down ridiculous things before. Every farmer has. You hear something at a sale barn or from an extension man or from a neighbor's uncle who once grew the biggest tomatoes in 3 counties, and sometimes you write it down just to give the thought a place to die. But that line did not die. Let the birds need what the plow only smears. It stayed with me through the next spring, when my beans came up uneven on the south bottom. It stayed with me in 1993, when a June storm put the low 17 acres under water again and left me harvesting weeds in October. And in January of 1994, after I paid for tile that had not solved the problem, I carried that blue ledger into the kitchen and laid it in front of my wife. She read the 4 pages without saying much. That was one of the things I loved about Ruth. She could let a foolish idea finish speaking before she decided whether it was foolish. When she closed the ledger, she did not ask whether I had lost my mind. She asked, "How many acres?" I said, 17. She said, "How many birds?" I said, "Blevins wrote 15 to 20 to start." Ruth looked through the window at the snow lying over that low field. Then she said, 17 acres is enough to matter, it is not enough to lose the farm. That was permission. Not excitement, not belief, permission. And for a man sitting at a kitchen table with an idea he can barely defend, permission can feel like a door opening. The trick was never the geese, that is what people missed first. They saw birds, and thought the birds were the whole plan. But the plan was water. Water at the wrong time had ruined that ground for 40 years. Water at the right depth, held and released on purpose, might make it work. So, before I bought a single gosling, I walked the field with a survey rod, and a pocket notebook. I did it in February when the frost held my weight. The field looked flat from the road, but it was not flat. It had a shallow sag running from the northwest corner toward the south ditch, like somebody had pressed a thumb into soft bread and then smoothed the surface over. The sag was not much, 6 inches in some places, 9 in one spot near a willow stump. But water knew it. Water always knows more about land than men do. I drove cedar stakes every 50 feet down that sag line. 21 stakes. When I stepped back, the field finally showed me its shape. For years, I had treated that low run like damage. It was not damage. It was the field's drain turned inside out. I spent March building around it. Not fancy. No engineer. No concrete. Just a low earthen berm along the south edge, a second cross berm near the willow, and a 12-inch tile outlet with a homemade flashboard box built from oak boards I pulled out of an old corn crib. Add 1 board, hold another inch, pull 1 board, drop the water before it warmed and stank. The berm only stood 26 inches at the crown, but I packed it in lifts the way my father taught me. Not one big push, small bites. Drive over it, let it settle, cut another slice. Pack it again. Men who build banks in a hurry, get to rebuild them in the rain. By April 9th, the south berm held. By April 18th, I could back water into the sag and keep it at 7 inches. 7 inches was the number in my father's ledger. Not 10, not 12. 7. Deep enough to soften the clay skin. Shallow enough that the geese had to walk. That was the entire difference between a field and a mess. The geese arrived on May 12th, 18 pilgrims in wooden crates, white and gray, loud enough to insult the morning. I opened the first crate at the gate and waited for something dramatic. Nothing dramatic happened. The lead gander stepped out, looked at the water, looked at me, then lowered his head like a banker reading bad terms. After a minute, he walked in. The others followed. Slowly. Not like animals being released into freedom. More like old women entering a church basement supper where they already know which table is theirs. Within 20 minutes they were spread across the shallow edge, cutting through the reed grass with their bills, stamping the mud as they moved, folding the soft stems down and tearing at the new growth. They worked in crooked lines, then in loops, then in a pattern that made no sense to me at all, but by the third day, I began to see it. They returned to the same runs, they grazed the high ridges first, then they pushed into the soft edges where roots had matted together for years. They did not break the field open, they worried it open. There is a difference. A machine attacks. An animal repeats. And repetition, if it is patient enough, can do things that force cannot. By the end of the first week, the water along the willow sag had turned the color of coffee. The geese had beaten loose old stems, sedge roots, insect larvae, and years of dead material buried under the mat. It looked worse. That was another thing people misunderstood. Repair often looks like damage while it is happening. Earl Beckett, the same man who laughed from the feed truck, came by the second Saturday. He stood at the fence with his thumbs hooked in his belt and watched the geese churn the brown water. He said, "You paid money to make soup." I said, "Come back when the soup settles." He shook his head. But he came back. Not then, later. The trouble came sooner than the proof. In late May, the county health office got a call about standing water and mosquitoes. The woman who drove out was polite in the careful way of people who are already writing you up in their mind. She wore clean boots and carried a clipboard. She asked whether the water had an outlet. I showed her the flashboard box. She asked whether the ditch could still carry spring runoff. I pulled 2 boards and let her watch the water drop through the outlet with a hollow, sucking sound. She wrote that down, then she asked what crop I intended to grow. When I said, Japanese millet first, maybe rice later if the ground changed, she looked at the geese and then back at me. That was the first time I understood how bad a plan can sound when the results are not yet visible. A flooded field. 18 geese. Millet on ground that had not made a clean soybean stand in years. It sounded like a joke told by someone who did not know when to stop. That night, Ruth found me at the kitchen table with the ledger open. I had my own notebook beside it. Water depth, bird count, temperature. Outlet height. Grass cover. It looked official. It did not feel official. I told her maybe I had mistaken my father's curiosity for wisdom. She turned the blue ledger toward herself and read the underlined sentence again, then she said, "Your father did not write that because he was sure. He wrote it because he thought it might matter later." That was enough to get me through June, not confidence. Enough. By June 14th, the water in the willow sag had gone from coffee brown to dark tea. By June 21st, the reed grass along the central run had thinned so much I could see bare soil in patches for the first time in memory. By June 28th, I pushed a soil probe into a place that had always felt like wet carpet over brick. It went down 9 inches before it slowed, 9. The year before, I had hit hard resistance at 5. I wrote the number down and stared at it like it might change if I blinked. Then I checked 6 more places, 5 were better, 1 was not. That was farming, nothing improves evenly. The geese had their own routes and the soil changed first where they walked most. I moved their fence lines every 10 days to widen the pattern. That summer, I became the strangest shepherd in Vermilion County. At dawn, I drove posts. At noon, I checked water boards. At dusk, I counted geese. Always 18, never 17. Never, almost. 18, a farmer who does not count his animals is just hoping loudly. The darkest point came the first week of July. We got 3 inches of rain in 2 nights. The river stayed in its banks, but the county ditch filled hard, and my outlet stopped pulling. By morning, the field held nearly 11 inches of water. Too deep, the geese were swimming more than walking. The berm on the south side seeped in 2 places, little brown threads running down the outside slope. I stood there in the rain with a shovel, and felt the whole experiment turning into exactly what every man at the elevator had called it. A swamp with poultry. I spent 6 hours cutting a temporary spillway through the west end, laying old feed sacks against the cut so it would not tear wider. Ruth brought coffee in a thermos, and said nothing about the mud on my face. Burl drove by twice, the second time he stopped. I expected a joke. Instead, he got out of the truck, took one look at the seep in the south berm, and said, "You need clay, not sand." Then he drove home, came back with his loader, and brought me 3 buckets of yellow clay from a bank behind his barn. He still thought the idea was foolish. But water against a bad bank is not a debate, it is a problem, and a neighbor who knows a problem will sometimes help before he believes. We packed the clay into the seep lines until dark. The berm held. The next morning, I pulled 2 boards from the flashboard box, and by evening the water was back under 8 inches. That week changed something. Not in the field. In the way people watched it. Before July, the geese were entertainment. After July, they became a question. Because the field should have failed right there. Instead, it settled. By mid-August, I broadcast Japanese millet across the higher shelves, and kept the water just below the crowns. Not a perfect stand, not even close. The west half came up patchy, the willow sag came up thick. Thin green spears appeared where the geese had worked the longest. That was the first visible proof. Not numbers, not notes, green where there had only been mat and water. Earl saw it before he admitted seeing it. He stopped one evening, leaned against the fence, and watched the millet shiver in a small wind. He said, "That part was dead last year." I said, "Yes." He said, "It is not dead now." Then he spit into the grass and drove away. For Earl, that was a speech. The county man came in September. Not the health office this time, a young soil conservation technician named Daniel Price. He had heard about the field from somebody who had heard about it from somebody else, which is how all agricultural research begins in a county where people pretend they do not gossip. He brought a penetrometer, a measuring wheel, and a face too young to be suspicious yet. I liked him for that. He did not arrive to prove me wrong, he arrived curious. We walked the willow sag first. The millet was waist-high in the best strip, shorter on the edges, yellowing at the tips as September cooled. The geese had been moved to a dry paddock by then. They stood beyond the fence in a single offended line, as if the field had been taken from them personally. Daniel pressed his instrument into the soil at 15 marked points. He wrote down resistance readings. Then he did it again on the west shelf where the birds had spent less time. The difference was not dramatic enough for a newspaper. It was dramatic enough for a man who understands soil. At the central run, resistance dropped below 300 pounds per square inch between 6 and 10 inches. On the west shelf, it stayed above 500 in the same layer. Daniel looked at the field. Then at the geese, then back at the field. He said, "Their paths show up underground." That sentence hit me harder than any compliment would have. Because it was exactly what my father's ledger had been trying to say. Not that geese were magic, not that old ways were better because they were old, that pressure, water, roots, manure, and time could leave a pattern the eye missed until the crop drew it in green. Daniel asked if I had records. I took him to the house. The blue ledger sat between us on the kitchen table. My father's handwriting was small and square, pressed hard enough that the pencil had grooved the page. Daniel read the Blevins notes once. Then, again. He asked who Blevins was. I told him all I knew. Soil Conservation Service, late 50s. Drove a tan Plymouth, according to my father. Believed wet ground had habits, not just problems. Daniel copied the underlined sentence. Let the birds need what the plow only smears. He did not smile when he copied it. That was how I knew he respected it. The first harvest was not impressive if you judged it against good ground. That is the mistake people make with reclaimed land. They compare it to the best acres. You have to compare it to what it was. We cut the millet in the last week of September, with an old sickle mower, and raked it with equipment that would have embarrassed a richer man. The central run made enough seed and forage to measure, the west shelf made less. The low corner by the willow, the place I had nearly given up on in July, made the heaviest heads. When it was all weighed, the field averaged 28 bushels of seed equivalent per acre across the work strip. That number would not make a magazine. But on ground that had given me 0, 3 years out of 5, 28 sounded like the first honest word in a long argument. The second year, I expanded the flock to 29. Not because more is always better. Because the field had shown me where the work had not reached. We changed the fence lanes. We held water at 6 inches instead of 7 once the soil softened. We planted millet again, then a short-season rice trial on 2 acres near the sag where the water control was cleanest. That made the men at the elevator laugh all over again. Less loudly this time. By the 3rd year, nobody called it Harold's Swamp unless they were trying to be funny and knew they were late to the joke. The low strip carried a clean stand. The reed grass retreated. The mosquitoes dropped because the water moved and the birds did not leave larvae alone long enough to become much of anything. The soil probe went deeper each spring. Not everywhere, not perfectly, but enough. Daniel brought 2 extension people out in 1997. One of them wore a tie in a field, which told me he was either important or inexperienced. They took measurements. They asked about bird weight, stocking rate, manure load, water depth, rotation interval, outlet design, seed costs, and how much labor it took. That last question mattered. Because every old method people rediscover has a cost someone forgot to mention. The geese did not work for free, they needed fencing. They needed moving. They needed winter shelter. They needed a man willing to stand in wet boots twice a day and count to 29 before breakfast. But the field had demanded money for years and returned almost nothing. Labor was not the new cost. Labor was the cost I could finally see. In October of 1998, Earl Beckett came through the gate without hunking. He walked the central run where rice heads bent low over the shallow water, not a commercial miracle, not Arkansas, not a glossy university photograph. Just grain. On my worst ground, he stood with his hands in his jacket pockets for a long time. Then he said, "How did you know it would work?" I told him the truth. I didn't. He looked disappointed by that. People prefer certainty after the fact. It makes the story easier. So I pointed back toward the house and said, "My father wrote down a possibility." I stopped treating it like a joke. That satisfied him more than it should have. A month later, Daniel sent me a copy of a county demonstration report, not a famous paper, not something framed in a university hallway. Just 12 pages stapled in the corner, with charts showing reduced surface compaction along repeated waterfowl lanes, improved infiltration in the central sag, and higher yield response where controlled water and bird pressure overlapped. My father's ledger was mentioned in a footnote. One sentence. One name. 1 year. I read that footnote 4 times. Then I took the report out to the tool cabinet and set it beside the blue ledger, because some answers belong near the questions that made room for them. By 2001, we no longer ran geese across the entire 17 acres. We did not need to. The worst strip had changed. Not into perfect ground. Perfect ground is something salesmen describe. Real ground keeps its habits. But the field could now be managed. That was the victory. In wet springs, we held water where it belonged. In dry summers, the deeper root channels carried crops longer than before. Over 7 seasons, the reclaimed strip paid back the berm. The outlet, the fencing, the birds, and the first 3 years of embarrassment. That last cost does not show on a ledger. But every farmer knows it is real. The geese lived out their years as if none of this concerned them. They walked, they grazed, they fouled the water. They stamped the clay. They made ordinary noises while men stood at fences, trying to turn the ordinary into an explanation. And that may be the cleanest lesson I ever got from a field. A thing does not have to look clever to be doing clever work. My father never saw that South Bottom carry grain again. I wish he had. But I think he would have recognized the method, not because of the birds, because he understood patience when it wore work clothes. He understood that soil is not persuaded by pride, and water is not impressed by machinery, and a foolish-looking answer is still an answer if it keeps proving itself after everyone stops laughing. The field did not need a bigger machine, it needed a slower answer with feet.